How many dogs have you actually rescued through these road trips?
55,000.
55,000. I gotta think it's a record.
It's not.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's not.
This is Pawprint, an animal rescue community. Episode 9. I'm Harold Ree.
I'm Nancy Ree.
Today's guest is the unbelievable Greg Meley of Rescue Road Trips.
I first learned about Greg when I came across an article about him on Yahoo News. He drives a truck.
And Greg uses that truck to save thousands of lives. We learn about how and why Greg Meley does it next.
If you want to learn more about Greg Meley, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/9. That's the number 9.
I started out doing this just because I wanted to help a few dogs. I got introduced into the rescue world from another rescue that had a van load of dogs coming through my area. The girl that was driving was too sleepy to get them the rest of the way, and the rescue knew I wasn't doing anything, so they called me and they asked me to go out along the interstate in the dark of the night, meet a person that I've never met before in my life, get in the van with them, and continue driving on down the road from Ohio to Connecticut. This sounded like craziness to me, and I was definitely into it. So I did. I went out and I met the person. I couldn't believe how many dogs were in the van. I couldn't believe what the van smelled like, but we got them there. And that was my introduction into the rescue world, and also my introduction of getting to see that dogs need moved from point A to point B. I continued along that same route, working with that same person. One trip a month turned into 2 trips a month, and it just started growing from there. The transport experience I was getting with her, I could quickly see that there was a much more efficient way to do things. A lot of things rely on legged transports, and that's where a dog gets moved from 50 miles down the road by one person and gets picked up by another person, and then another and another and another. And that's not real efficient. A lot of times the next person to pick the dog up won't show up, and the dog will get stalled out somewhere, and who knows when they'll ever be able to find a ride for it. Also, it's extremely costly per dog. Every single person is putting at least $20 into gas, and if you add up the 10 or 15 or 20 people that move the dog for not really that long of a distance, that's a lot of money being spent on gas. I could see that if I were to take the dog from the beginning of its route to the end of its route, we wouldn't have to depend on other people showing up. I could also see that if everybody would just, chip in $5 to $7 of that $20 that they're spending on gas money and give it to me to cover the gas, I could get the dog there for so much less money and get it there quicker and safer. And that's how the idea of all of this got going. In the beginning, I was doing it just to have fun and just to have a big adventure in my life. I started off in a minivan that I borrowed from a neighbor, and then we used that completely up. So we had to start renting vans from a rental agency, renting 1 van and then renting 2 vans and then 3 vans. I had several out on the road. And then one day the rental agency gave me a call and said that I don't fit their business model.
Oops.
Oops, I was putting way too many miles on the vans, and they cut me off immediately. I had a run scheduled with dogs that were waiting for me and depending on me to get them out of the south and into homes in the north. So I had to borrow money from my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and my mother, so I could go out and buy a used van and just do that run real quick. And let me tell you, borrowing money when you're just dating someone and you borrow money from them, man, that really hits you in the pride, and you've got to swallow hard before you ask.
That's right.
It really did. I mean, that really took something. But she believes in me, and she believes in my cause. And now we're married, so that made it all okay.
No kidding. But by the time you and your wife Adella got married, how many months or years had you been doing rescue road trips?
5 years.
5 years, okay. All these dog trips did not dissuade her, right?
So, no, they did not.
Good.
Yeah. The only thing, it's hard because I'm gone for a week at a time, and I'm really crazy about my wife. When I'm out on the road, I want to be home with my wife and my own dogs. And when I'm home, I'm pulled of the knowing that there are dogs that need my help and wanting to go and help them. So it's a constant tightrope I'm walking with doing this and trying to maintain some type of family life.
Sure. Sounds like there were times when the money was tight.
Money is still just as tight as it was in the beginning. I charge a flat rate of $185 per dog. Some weeks I can make things work. Other weeks there aren't enough dogs on to make ends meet. Donations are critical to what I do. I rely on used equipment. My equipment all expired way long time ago, and we're operating with duct tape and Band-Aids and strings and prayers to try to get us by all the time. And that's just part of doing this. It really is. In order to have all new equipment and have a bunch of employees, you would have to raise the price of moving the dog. That would make it so high that you wouldn't be helping dogs. And I got in this to help dogs.
When you actually ended up purchasing the truck, did you have a truck driving license?
I did not have a truck driving license. We purchased this truck from Vermont, and it would have been the first truck that required a Class A CDL. I hired a Class A CDL driver, and we both got on a plane and headed for Vermont. Bought the truck, the driver drove it home, parked it in my driveway. The next morning, I got out and I stood in front of it, and it seemed like it was 14 stories tall. It was the hugest thing I'd ever seen. My knuckles were white just standing there looking at it, and I'm thinking, I got to learn how to drive this thing. And this has never been part of my plan in my life to drive a semi, but now there's one sitting in my driveway and I need to figure out how to drive it. Yeah, eventually I did get my CDL, my Class A. Now today, after driving it for 4 years, there are no worries. But I can tell you, the first few days of that truck sitting in my driveway just scared me to death.
I believe it.
What I was going to do. We've used several different vehicles throughout the life of rescue road trips. I've used rented vans that I've owned. We've had a box truck. We've had a small truck with a small trailer, a bigger truck with a bigger trailer, and now we're in a semi with a really big trailer. It's just been a progression throughout the years, and none of this has ever been planned. I just try to meet my needs of what's going on right now. There was a point when I had more than one vehicle out on the road. I'd send the small truck, the box truck, and a few of the vans out at a time. I could see that this wasn't really the way I wanted to head with things. I had people out there handling dogs. My overhead was going through the roof. I was spending more time in the office than anything else. I started doing this because I wanted to be around the dogs. I wanted to handle them and touch them and feel them and squeeze them, and that wasn't happening. So I took all of the vehicles off the road except one, and that's the one that I go in now. Things are much more calm and relaxed, and I am much, much happier. We're not generating any money at all. You don't make a dime in this business. You really don't. You basically have to pray just to pay your bills. But at the end of the day, when I lay down at night, I can close my eyes and I can sleep well because I know I've did something to help. Maybe it hasn't been the greatest thing in the world, but at least I've done something. And that's what I would hope for every single person in the world. If at the end of the day, they just thought back and thought, I've done one little thing to try to make the world just a little bit of a better place, the world would be a much better place. And I believe in making my contribution.
Thank you for sharing that. For folks who are wondering, why doesn't the $185 fee really cover enough? Where do you start the trip? Obviously from your home, but where do you start the trip? Where do you find the dogs? And then where do you eventually place the dogs?
We start our trip in Ohio on a Monday morning. I head for the Deep South, Houston, Texas, arriving in Houston, Texas on Wednesdays. I run a route back across the bottom part of the United States, covering Louisiana, Mississippi, and then I start working my way north and east, headed for New England. I arrive in New England on a Saturday, and that's where most of the dogs are getting picked up, 90% of them. At the end of Saturday, I make the turn and head back for Ohio, arriving in Ohio on a Sunday afternoon. So I'm gone for the whole week, Monday through Sunday. It is exactly 4,200 miles from the end of my driveway to the end of my driveway. The cost of fuel for a semi that gets 8.75 miles to the gallon is astronomical.
Yeah.
I have one paid driver that I bring with me. I couldn't do it without another driver, and he's an employee. I have one paid office/sanitation person that stays here in Ohio. She works on office stuff and phone calls with the doctors, things like that, while I'm driving. Also, when I get back, she strips the trailer, sanitizes everything, sanitizes the inside of the trailer, and then puts it all back together. So everything is sanitized for the next run.
Nice.
So that's 2 paid employees, a ton of gasoline, or not gasoline, diesel fuel. The insurance and just operating costs, the breakdowns on your equipment, the truck's in the shop today, getting new injectors. I expect that to be a really big bill. It's a used truck. It's got almost 100,000 miles on it, or it's got almost 1 million miles on it.
Right. I was going to say 100,000. That's probably what you hit by April, right? So
yeah. So, the truck is getting used up. It was used when we bought it, and we've really used it. The trailers, we only get about 3 years out of them. They're cargo trailers, and they weren't meant to be pulled to Houston and then pulled to New Hampshire and pulled home all in the same week in and week out. They're built to more go around town, but they're what works for us. So
more short haul, right? Than long haul.
We work with them and try to get by and try to keep them fixed up and welded up and keep them rolling also. So you go out on the road for a week and you come home, and you'll either find me under the truck, on top of the truck, in the engine compartment, or sitting in an office chair trying to figure out how to make all of this work.
Yeah. On a typical trip, how many dogs are you actually transporting?
If it's a regular week and a regular run, and I get to have my choice of how many dogs are going to get on with me, about 70 dogs.
Unbelievable.
That would be what I'm looking for, though. You can have a week when maybe only 30 dogs come, but you're committed to do it, so you've got to do the run anyway.
Mm-hmm. Why do the southern states have a larger supply of dogs, and why is it New England that has a relatively larger demand?
There are a few pockets that have a higher demand. New England, and then on the other side of the United States, the Washington area. Colorado is a little bit of a pocket that they can take dogs in also. The southern states, there are so many things in play. There is not one good reason. Everybody wants there to be one good reason, and then that way they can point to it and they can fix it. This problem isn't going to get fixed in my lifetime, that's for sure. It's cultural, it's the prevalence of warm winters, it's political. There are so many reasons. And I don't want to try to make people think that the South is the only place that has a dog problem, because it's not. That there's a pet overpopulation problem everywhere in the United States.
Correct.
It's just way more acute in the southern states.
Good point. 7 days with up to 70 dogs. How do you deal with the potty breaks? How do you deal with the feeding and the walking and making sure that they all behave?
A lot of people laugh when I give this answer, but it's the truth. I deal with them one at a time. That's the only way you can do it, just one at a time. There are points in the journey when I and my driver have to walk the dogs. When it's those points, it's really quick and it's down to business. The driver hooks up a dog for me. I'm on the outside of the trailer. I give it a quick walk. While I'm giving it a quick walk, he'll check the crate. If the crate needs anything, he'll clean it and put it back together real quick. And then by that time, I'm standing there with the dog ready for the next one. So he keeps shuttling them to me. But this is really fast and really business-like. At several other points along the route, I have volunteers. We call them angels, because they're people that just give up time out of their day to come out and walk the dogs and love on the dogs and reassure them, which really helps in the grand scheme of things. But it gives me a little bit of a break. It gives the dogs a little bit of a break. A lot of times that dog can be out on the ground 2 to 3 hours with one person.
Sure.
So it's getting a nice break along the way. This is helping the dog. A lot of the dogs aren't as socialized as they could be. So all along the way, I'm having volunteers handle this dog. It's helping with his socialization. It's helping with his reassurance. This is all part of my plan. I was in the restaurant business for most of my life, and I can tell you that when the plate hits the table, 50% of the battle is won or lost right there before anything else happens. The same is true with this. When we get to New England and that dog comes out of the trailer, goes into the adopter's arms, 50% of the battle is won or lost right there. You want the dog coming out being fluffy, happy, well adjusted. You want those first few moments with the adopters to be very, very positive. Anything less than that will be setting up the dog to fail. And I didn't give up part of my life so that the dog could fail. I'm doing this because I want the dog in the home and I want it forever. And I'll do everything I can do to encourage that to be a forever home. So using volunteers along the way, making sure the dogs are comfortable, making sure the dogs have everything they need. It's all part of the plan for when we get to New England. And it's all part of the plan to make sure that dog goes into a good home, stays in a good home. I'm not trying to lead you to believe that this is 100% of the time, because in life, nothing is 100%. There is the occasional return, and you will have to deal with that. If you're going to drive, there's going to be accidents. If you're going to adopt dogs, you're going to get one returned every now and then for reasons that you didn't see. But that's a very small percentage of the time. I'm doing what I can do to make sure that I help most of the dogs go into the right home. That first few minutes of coming out of the trailer, I want it to be perfect for the family and the dog, and everything is getting off on the right foot that way.
Thanks for sharing that. There's so much too that applies to really all rescue, right?
Yes.
When folks actually find a pet, let's say on a website like a petfinder.com, do they actually realize that it's you who's picking up the dog, let's say in Texas or in Mississippi, and actually delivering it to them?
You know, a lot of times, no, they don't, and they're really surprised when they find out. A lot of them think the dog is in their neighborhood or something. Then they find out that the rescue group is in their neighborhood, but the dog's being fostered hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And then they get introduced to, well, how's the dog going to get here? Most people aren't made aware of me until way into the adoption process. Mm-hmm. I'm not something they think of beforehand. I'm something they get told about halfway through.
With all these trips over 10 years, approximately how many dogs have you actually rescued through these road trips?
55,000.
55,000. Unbelievable. I got to think it's a record.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's not. I work with closely with another transport, and his numbers are way larger than mine.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Yeah. Unbelievable. Now that you've rescued 55,000 dogs, and of course, granted, a lot of your dogs are of mixed breeds, do you realize that you actually have a passion for a certain kind of breed of dog after all these years? Anything that you've discovered about yourself?
Yeah, I did think that I had a passion for one particular breed until I started doing this. And in doing this, I got introduced to breeds that I'd never even heard of before. So I got introduced to a lot of new breeds. I also got introduced to mixed breeds.
Sure.
Some people call it designer dogs. Catahoula mixed with a greyhound, I love. Before I did this, Irish setters were my breed of choice, and I still have an Irish setter today. Though I do have a thing for Catahoulas. I lean more towards the hound dogs. There is not one particular breed that I say, oh yes, I gotta have that and nothing else. No, that's not true. I've met a lot of really, really great pit bulls, and nothing will snuggle like a pit bull will.
Sure.
Yeah, there are some particular breeds that I like, though the point that I'd like to try to make with everyone is don't just go with what the dog looks like or what breed it is. Do a little research into the dog. Find out about the dog's personality.
Good point.
That dog's personality is what's going to win you over, and the dog's personality is what you're going to live with for the rest of the dog's life. So get a dog that you like the personality of, that matches your lifestyle. A really active person doesn't want a couch potato of a dog, and a couch potato of a person doesn't want a really super active dog. Get somebody that fits into your home and your lifestyle, and look for that first. And the aesthetics of the dog, that'll come. When you fall in love, you'll think anything's beautiful. So if you fall in love with that dog, it won't matter what breed it is, it won't matter what it looks like, you'll be in love and it'll be beautiful to you.
It's really tough asking you to choose a couple highlights out of 55,000 dogs. Are there any stories that you can share about inspiring dogs, inspiring people who you've come across?
I'm not sure I can pick out one particular person. The girls I work with in the rescues in the South, the girls that are getting out there in the trenches every day, they're the ones trudging into kill shelters. That's so hard. To walk into a kill shelter, you're in there to get a dog out, and you do spring a dog, but you also see all of the rest of the dogs that you can't take with you, and that's what the hard part is.
Right.
And they'll be looking back at you, and you just have to realize that you can't save every one of them. And the people that do this day in and day out, I've seen one particular rescue have her electricity shut off at her house because she was trying to pay one of her vet bills. These people that do this do it with extreme passion, and to me, they're heroes. They're all heroes. I wish I could give you a list of every one of them. The list would be 10 miles long.
Right.
But these people in rescue, they inspire me to be a better person.
Thanks for sharing that. There's been actually a book written about your story. Could you tell us a little bit about how you understand the book to have started, and how is that journey for you?
I use Facebook, along with the volunteers. I use Facebook to try to work up the adopters. Here again, we're making sure those first few seconds are magic for the adopter. So I will use Facebook to try to excite the adopters. I take pictures of the dog all along the way and keep them posted and keep everybody posted about where I'm at and what I'm doing. One week, somebody got a dog and they got introduced to me. They got introduced to the Facebook page. They got to see their dog coming up. They didn't know about me. They didn't realize that the dog that they were adopting was in Louisiana. They thought it was close to them. So everything that was happening was all new to him. That will be the author of the book. Huh. He was so intrigued with all of this, he needed to know more. After he got his dog, he loved his dog, but he wanted to find out more about the rescues, more about myself. So he contacted me and asked if he could go on a ride with me one week. And I was like, come out with me. You don't know what you're asking for, but you can come out. So he came out, and I got to introduce him to everything that was going on out on the road and the rescues. After we got him home, he spent a few weeks at home, and then he flew back to the South to visit with the individual rescues. He took a couple more short rides with me, and he tried to record everything.
Right.
He hit the nail on the head. He's not overly dramatic with what's going on in the South, and he doesn't sugarcoat it either. He tells it from a very middle-of-the-road aspect, and I liked how he did that. He explained a lot about me. I think I'm the most boring person in the world, and I think those parts could be cut out of the book. There was a lot of people that wanted to learn more about me and more about me personally and why I do what I do. I think that's why most of the people are looking into me personally, is because they don't understand why I'm doing this, or why I would put myself through this or put my family through it. But after you read the book, you'll get a better understanding that I'm trying to help dogs, and there are hundreds of us out there, thousands of us out there trying to do the exact same thing. So I recommend getting the book. It's a good read. It tells about what's going on in the southern states. It tells a lot about adoption. There are points you'll laugh. There are points you'll cry. My endorsement, it's a good book.
Great. Yeah. And the name of the book is Rescue Road, correct?
Correct. The name of the book is Rescue Road. And it hasn't been out that long. It is already a New York Times bestseller.
That's right. New York Times bestseller. It's an Amazon bestseller. You sound like a humble guy. You don't necessarily want the spotlight. Through you, an important cause is being spotlighted.
That's true. And when the author contacted me and wanted to go on the ride with me, I'm talking to my wife, and I was like, hey, this guy wants to come out and go on a ride. I'm not sure if he's a kook, if he's a legitimate. I just don't know about this. And we talked about it for a while, and if he really did try to write a book, what kind of book would it be? Would it do anything? We continued talking about it, and then decided that even if when he comes out and he does a little bit of something, if it helps just one extra dog get out, if it helps one extra person realize that they can get a dog from somewhere else and they can help a dog, then having him ride along with me was great, because I would do anything to help even one more dog get out. I believe I got my wish. He helped at least one. There's no way that you're going to be able to put a number on how many dogs are helped because of this book, but I can tell you it's raising awareness in a lot of people, and it's going to help a lot of dogs. And that was what I wanted from the very beginning, was, hey, if this book can just raise some awareness and help a dog. So I am getting what I wanted with the book.
That's great. I mean, do you feel since the book's been published, or since the book's been published, what kind of feedback have you gotten, and has the feedback sort of grown?
The feedback is continuing to grow. The feedback is 100% positive. I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about the book. There has to be somebody that didn't like the book. As I said before, nothing is 100%. So I'm sure there are people out there that didn't like the book. I just haven't heard from them, fortunately.
Right. Okay. Well, let's rewind the clock back just a little bit. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Zanesville, Ohio, grew up in Zanesville, Ohio. You're talking to me in Zanesville, Ohio. I've been here my whole life. It is southeastern Ohio. It's rural. It's backwoodsy. It's like any other Midwestern town. It has no industry to sustain it anymore. It dies a little bit more every year. But it's where I call home. It's where my wife is from. We have a stepson who is going to school here. So, we're making the best that we can make of it for now. It's really not that bad of a place. And if I would have left here, I would have never met my wife. So I'm happy that I did not leave here.
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so, not too far from southeastern Ohio. What did your parents do growing up?
My father ran a filling station. He pumped gas and was a mechanic most of his life. My mother was a secretary for a short while and then quit to stay home with us and raise her family while my dad worked on cars and pumped gas. At some point, my father got out of the filling station business and he bought a little corner building on a corner. Wanted to sell ice cream out of it. We started a really small ice cream store, and that grew into that ice cream store turning into a restaurant. One restaurant turned into two turned into three. We eventually had 5 restaurants running at one point. Sometime in that transition of going from 1 to 5, my father passed away. So just my mother and I running the restaurants. I was fortunate to get to work alongside my father. He taught me a lot of things about life. He gave me a work ethic like no other. My father was a drill sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he raised me as such. I still say ma'am and sir to everyone, and it's just how my father raised me, and he taught me to work hard and tough it out and knuckle under, take it, and get the job done.
How old were you when your father passed away?
Approximately 21, 22.
Okay.
I had 2 brothers that were kind of involved, but they got out shortly after.
It takes a certain personality, right?
That whole working in a family business, it's not for everybody. It's not. But I'm fortunate. I get to work alongside my mother every single day. It gave us a bond that I think a lot of people don't have. I got to work with my brothers as we were growing up. That brought us all closer as a family. So yeah, the family business, man, I'll tell you, that's a tough way to go, and I'm not even sure I would recommend it to anybody. I will always feel lucky that was how I got brought up.
Growing up, what was your either first experience with dogs or any memorable experience with animals in your childhood?
I've liked dogs ever since I've been little. This term rescue, it's come in vogue lately. When I was little, no one had ever heard of that word. It was just letting a stray dog follow you home.
Yeah. That's great.
I'd go out on my bike and a dog would follow me home, and I would think it was mine, and that would make me happy. The first dog that I can remember that happened with, the dog's name was Poochie, and Poochie started staying at the house. I think of Poochie a lot when I put dogs into the arms of the families in New England. Poochie taught me about being compassionate. Poochie taught me about being responsible. Poochie taught me how to love. Poochie taught me how to care for animals. I learned so much at a young age from a dog. So I hope that when I bring a dog into a family and I see small children, I know that family, those children aren't going to remember me. They're not going to remember what happened that day. But if you ask any of them when they're 80 years old, if they remember their first dog, they'll tell you all about it. Hopefully, that dog will do the same thing that Poochie did to me. Teach me to be a better person. That dog will teach them to be a better person. It'll teach them to love and therefore maybe make the world just a little better place.
Wow. When you made that transition from restaurants to rescue road trips, were you kind of thinking in your mind, I want to go in a different direction? How did that come about?
None of this is planned. But this has all happened one day at a time. The restaurants were sold, and I thought that I had retired. I had actually sold the house that I was living in, and I had moved back onto the farm with my mother because, we had been to work every day, and now we're not going to work every day. I thought it would be great to be back on the farm. There wasn't much money to sustain us from the sale of all the restaurants, but there was enough to pay the monthly bills. And I thought, what more do I need than that? I'm young. It would be great to be retired and be living on a farm. Who needs a lot of money? So I went for it. I had only been what I thought was retired for just a few months before I got the first call from the rescue saying they needed help with driving the van. From being in family restaurants, it taught me a lot about how to do this job too. Family restaurants is a 24 hours a day job, 7 days a week, nights, weekends, and holidays. I worked that my whole life like that. There were several years straight that you worked without a single day off, and that's just the family. But that's just the restaurant business and the family restaurant business. So a lot of what I do today is very similar to the demands of the family restaurant. I go to work for a week at a time. There are times on the road when you do get to close your eyes, but you're really still at work. The transition between the two, I was already finished with the restaurants and had started in my life in another direction when rescue came and took my life in yet another direction.
Thanks for sharing that. What does 2016 look like for Greg Meley and Rescue Road Trips?
Hopefully, we might get some new equipment to do this in. If we don't, hopefully the equipment we have holds out. I have a U-carrying site where we are trying to get enough money to get a tractor trailer, or at least a used one, to replace what we're using. So hopefully 2016 we'll see some different equipment, possibly some new equipment. This will take a huge weight off my shoulders. Maybe not so much time working on a truck, or maybe not so much time worrying about is it going to make it through this run? Is it going to make it until we get home so we can work on it again? But as far as the dogs go, we're going to see a lot more dogs, and that part's going to make me happy. And I'm going to spend a week with them. And that part's going to make me really happy. It's like being in a busload of lottery winners.
Right.
They're all happy. They know what's going on. They know they've been sprung from jail. They know they've been saved from death. I don't necessarily know that they know where we're going down the road, but you can tell they know something. And I love being with them. I love looking at them, holding them. I love what they smell like. I love everything about them.
It's amazing to think that after 10 years and rescuing 55,000 dogs, in the big scheme of things, it still feels like a drop in the bucket. I just find that amazing and maybe a sad image, right?
It is a drop in the bucket. And, in this business, I and the rest of the rescues, you can't concentrate on the pet overpopulation problem and thinking that you're doing something about it, because you're really not. To think it would be like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. There's just such a huge amount of dogs coming in.
How do people find you? Online, through social media?
In order to find me, I've got a website, rescueroadtrips.com. It's got a few interesting things to look at. It has one story on it it's a true story. It's called Fido's Letter, and it's written from the dog's point of view of being in a kill shelter. I helped with that letter after we had been to a kill shelter and we had asked them to hold a dog for us. They said they would. We went back to get the dog a few hours later, and the dog had been euthanized. So that whole story came out of that situation.
Oh, my goodness.
It's very much a true story. All of the numbers that I use in it are real. The only thing that is not real are I use 2 different dog names. Those are not the correct dog names, but everything else in that story is true and correct. I also have a Facebook page. A Facebook page is a feel-good page. It's designed for the adopters of this week and the adopters that are coming. The adopters that aren't really sure if they're getting a pig in a poke or what this out-of-state adoption thing is can go to my website and they can find out that, yes, we're a real thing and this is really happening. And this is what's happening with the dogs this week. It is a total feel-good page. If you're having a bad day, if you need a smile, go to that page, check out the pictures. You will definitely smile before you're finished. Also, I have a U-carrying site. If you just go to U-carrying and type in Rescue Road Trips, it will pull up the fund where we're trying to raise funds to get a new tractor trailer or a used tractor trailer. Anything and everything is appreciated. Believe in me and believe in my cause. In some way that I will figure out how to make this all work, and we'll keep doing it.
Thanks to Greg Meley for sharing his story. In an upcoming episode, we'll actually interview the author of Rescue Road, Peter Zeutlin, and we'll give you an update on Greg Meley's fundraising progress. If you want to learn more about Greg Meley and Rescue Road trips, or are interested in making a donation, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/9. If you want to learn more about me and Nancy, go to Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. This is Pawprint is our handle. If you want to listen to more episodes, you can go to iTunes or SoundCloud. Those are the two most popular places to listen to our episodes. Go to thisispawprint.com/iTunes or thisispawprint.com/SoundCloud. We want to say thank you to all of you, our listeners out there. Thanks for spreading the positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day. See you next time on Pawprint.
Pawprint is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth!
Woohoo!